So from here, this backing plate on is all the driver's side stuff. I got this painted, that painted today. So all the components are painted and up drying. The spindle, part for alignment, engine mount bracket, all the fasteners. So the right side or passenger side backing plate, radiator, lower radiator supports, the control arms and fasteners for the right side of the car, the spindle, and the engine mount bracket for the right side of the car. While I'm waiting for paint to dry, I was just fooling around tidying up the garage a little bit, and this fuel pump from the Bel Air's been laying around, so I took the bottom off, which was where it was spraying out of the bottom, and you can see the gasket where it looks like it just got oil on it from, turned out there was no gasket here. I had replaced the pump on the road and did not have a gasket, so I just put the pump on without a gasket and then forgot about it. It didn't really leak oil. I mean, it just did get oily around the fuel pump, but it didn't drip on the ground and from it. So anyway, this is that's why the pump failed. And I have, pretty certain I have these. I have a couple rebuild kits for these old style pumps. So I can make this pump good again. Rebuild kit comes with new check valves, new diaphragm, and this. All the rubber pieces basically. I was just working on the alternator while the paint's drying, and that pulley is definitely seized on there, so I got my pulley puller and put it on the impact, and we're gonna hit it a few times and try and get it off. And I'm gonna try and do this and hold the camera at the same time. Oops, wrong one. Yeah, that pulley's really rusted on there. Let me horse with it and get it the rest of the way off. Well, this answers the question on what color I'm going to paint this. It's definitely black. These either were blue or black, and this is definitely black. So that's what color the new ones will be. I'm going to start taking this apart so I can put new bearings and go through it. I figure I'd work on the motors while I'm waiting on paint on the control arms to dry to stir up other dust. So I'm just, I got these screws out that hold the halves together. The key with these is just kind of work them back and forth to break them free. So you don't want to snap them off. So, and then I always use a plastic or brass mallet. This thing's really corroded together. That bearing in the nose there feels rough. That's in good shape. I'll clean that up, but that's in really good shape. Everything looks pretty good on the alternator on the inside. The brushes could use a replacement. You can see the brushes down in there, can you? Right here. Well, the back one's a little worn, so the springs for the brushes. So to get this apart, you take all the nuts off. I didn't take that one totally off because that's what goes to the one brush. The other brush just goes to ground. So you loosen up the screws for the brushes. There's the one brush, the screw to ground. Brush holder, and the other brush, which will come out as soon as I undo this nut here. Take that off, there's the other brush. Little insulation thing there, don't lose that. I'm just going to leave it right there, but you can see these brushes are usually about twice that length. We'll see what the new ones look like when we get the new ones and compare them. Alright, these are the diodes. You can check those with an ohm meter. They should have continuity one way and not the other. That's your lug for your battery. And I believe that is the field. That's a ground. And I think that's a ground. I don't remember, but I'd have to put it back in the case. But you can see the case is, yeah, so battery goes, so that's the stator, I'm sorry. Stator, battery, ground, and ground. So that's the, needs a good cleaning up. I'm going to knock that bearing out, and then I'm going to take this bearing out and give it the housings a good cleaning. Get the rotor off, you take this little sleeve off, and then they should just pull off. There it goes. Getting over that threaded tip. I don't want to tap on it because I don't want it to hit the armature to hit the floor. Maybe I'll just take that and dress that up with a file, or maybe I'll just give it a good jerk. So now we got the rotor out. And it actually looks pretty good. Doesn't look like it's been hot or anything. That's the new front bearing, nice and smooth. This is the old bearing, rough. I got to heat these up. I've been soaking them with penetrant, but they're just not breaking loose, so I'm just going to heat them up with the propane torch and see if I can get them loosened. I'll probably heat them here and try and loosen them. Well, I soaked these screws in penetrant overnight, and it definitely went down in there, but well, this one's turning a little bit. Yeah, I don't know if it's just going to snap up. I'm going to heat them up with the propane torch. Just don't want to take a chance on snapping them. I don't want to use the acetylene torch. That's just too much. Well, one broke, so we got to drill and tap one. Probably may have to do all three of them. Get this one a little hotter. I'm going to get a glove on. Yeah, that's not turning. Don't really want to break another one. definitely seized. Yeah, that is not turning. See if it'll suck some penetrant in there. Usually when you put something cool on something hot, it sucks it in. Two broken off. Well, might as well just break the third off, huh? We'll give it a try with some heat. If I break it, I'll just be drilling all three. Myself here. Yep. All three. Alright. So as you can see, I was totally successful in breaking all three screws off. So now I get to drill them out, and I'm going to knock the bearing out first in case that's a hassle. Bad bearing just tapped right out of the old hammer, just lightly tapped it out. I'm going to clean this up and then I'm going to start drilling. Well, I took it down and drilled it out on the drill press because I could get a nice straight drilling with it. Now I'm just tapping the holes out. I did put a little oil on the holes so the tap would have some lubricant. And I already tapped that one out, and I found some screws to put in, but I think they're going to be too long. I may have to cut them off. Well, no, I guess they're all right. By the time that steel plate's in there, they'll be about there. That's fine. Perfect. New front bearing installed. I think I'm going to clean this up, but I think I might spin things with the spin the rotor with the motor or something to, you know, so I can run some emery cloth on that. Well, I pushed the wrong button again, sorry, but to get this bearing out, this end bearing that was in there, I just found a socket that the bearing would fit through by using the new bearing. And I set it on the old bearing so it would be up high enough. You know, I don't want to crack the housing. Then I just set this on there, put this on the bearing, and tapped it all the way through. So this bearing's in. And I cleaned up the things here a little bit, but that's nice and smooth now. And I cleaned up the shaft here where it goes in this bearing, and I'm going to clean this housing up, and then I'm going to throw it back together. You can put this in with the press or tap it in with a hammer. It's just as easy to tap it in with a hammer. I just use a little bigger socket so when it's flush with the bottom of the alternator it's in. Guess I got to keep that socket in the center there. I'd say that bearing is in. So you can see the difference in the brushes, the new brushes and the old brushes. They weren't that badly worn. So I'm going to obviously put the new brushes in. And I'm going to do that first by putting them in the holder. So you need like a, see how there's like a thing there? I'm going to show you. See how there's a little hole that goes through there? I don't know if that shows up. I can't see the viewfinder. But you use a wire or a paper clip or something to hold the brushes in. There's a hole on the back of the alternator there to do the same, you know, to where you can pull it out when you're done. So you got to stuff your brushes in. That's one brush. Find the other. This goes down in the bottom of the alternator right there. It's an insulation piece, and that's important to be in there. And then the other brush. Need something to push down on a little bit here. There we go, the brushes are in the holder. This goes over and in like so. And it goes through that insulation pad down in there, through the wire through the hole. And get it lined up there. And that screw goes through there. this brush screws to the ground right here. These were the little screws that held the brushes in. Gotta find my little nut driver. It'd be easier to put those in with it. I gotta set this such so I don't knock that wire out. Let me get some tools here. Tighten these screws up. So now I set this on. Try and get it in place to where everything belongs. There we go. We'll just do these up a little finger tight now, just to make sure they're all kind of, I think I'm going to clean this up. Why not, right? This is the stator. I just like to make sure everything's kind of in where it's supposed to be. And then the grounds, and I think I'm going to clean up these two nuts, all the rest of the nuts here too. So I'm going to clean them all up and then I'll finish putting it together. Give them all a quick bead blast on a little piece of wire. Everything looks good. All the little plastic things are where they're supposed to be so that there's no shorts. I think I'll just set these, I'll tighten all the nuts up, snug them all up now that they're all in their proper place. This one was the one for the brushes. These are just where the wires will go on. Actually, I think that put those bigger nuts. Well, no, that's just the way it was when I took it apart, so I'll leave it like that. These two nuts were the ones I bead blasted. That's the ground, That's the field, the stator, and the battery. And that's probably ground too. I don't think anything was hooked to that. So there we got this part of the alternator back together. Now I'll just put this in, and I got to make sure I orient the alternator correctly, and this battery was to the right of that terminal there. I hope this all shows up. This terminal was to the right of this. The two halves are together. I got them lined up, and just snug it up. Put a little drop of oil on the threads of these screws that hold the halves together so they don't seize in. Alright, and then make sure it turns, which it does, nice and freely and quietly. Pull this out, and the brushes are against the rotor now, and there's no reason why this shouldn't charge. So got my handprints all over it, so I'll wipe it down and call this a rebuilt alternator. Got a tuber sending me a pulley, and I got the fan for it all cleaned and ready for paint. Alright, there we be, a rebuilt alternator. I think we'll call this a day on this project. The alternator's, it's ready for the fan and the car, and these are what I replaced: the front bearing, the rear bearing, the brushes, both brushes, the springs for the brushes, and of course the bolts that I broke to hold the front bearing in, and the old rusted out pulley. So the next time I'm waiting on paint to dry before I stir up dust, maybe I'll work on the starter, and then after that maybe the wiper motor. These all have to be done, and I don't want to get dirt in my fresh paint, so I guess why things are curing, that's the kind of stuff I'll do. I'm scrounging around and found these are the rubber pieces for the stabilizer, right and left stabilizer bar. When I say stabilizer, this. And I also found one of these. It's an alternator rebuild kit, and you can see it fits a lot of different vehicles. Fits this Ford alternator all the way back to 65. And I have front and rear bearings. I didn't have brushes, but finding this, now I got brushes. So yeah, it's pretty old packaging. I would say it's pretty yellowed. If you like my video, hit the like button. If you enjoy my channel and want to see this Galaxie resurrected, please subscribe to my channel, and thank you for watching.